I was singing a mantra, and an approximate translation is gone, gone, totally gone to the great beyond. And I was in this little meditation cubby, and the whole place is like a concrete box, so it had this amazing resonance. And I was like, oh, maybe I can sing a little bit. Okay. And there was a moment where, poof, the mantra worked. And be careful what you sing, because that's what fucking happened. And there was this moment where there was no sense of self whatsoever. There was then hyperventilating and breathing and fear. It was all just happening. And then, boom, like 10 seconds later, a feeling of slamming back into myself and sheer fucking terror. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Joseph Campbell. Welcome to the What We Learned Project, where we share our most important life lessons so you don't have to go through them yourself, and our struggles to overcome our challenges in a crazy world. We'll be taking you with us on our journey of growth, expansion, sometimes failure, and sometimes success, all with the intention that you learn and grow with us along the way. Today's episode is part 1 of a 2-episode series about the 11 days I spent in complete darkness and solitude in May of 2024. In this episode, recorded 2 weeks before I entered the darkness, we discussed my previous experience in dark retreats, the history of this spiritual tradition, my intentions, my process for preparation, where I was at as I readied my mind, body, and spirit to enter the void, and much, much more. One quick note, you'll hear us mentioning 14 days in darkness throughout this episode, but ultimately it turned out to be only 11. Be sure to also tune in to part 2, where we'll cover why I didn't make it to 14 days and the hard-earned lessons and intense humbling I received during the dark retreat. I'm one of your hosts, Micah, and I've been an entrepreneur for the last 2.5 decades. In early 2023, I sold my business after nearly 20 years, and am interested in what it means to live a conscious, joyful, awakened, and abundant life. And this podcast is my effort, along with my co-host, Dr. Alan Bittaker, to share that exploration with the world. You can find me on Instagram at TATONKUH. That's Tatonka, if you'd like to learn more and follow me. And I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Alan Bittaker. Alan is by training a doctor of chiropractic and is currently practicing as a transformational coach with a background in a variety of modalities to support his clients. If what we talk about helps you uncover an area where you'd like to grow, he's available for one-on-one support or through one of his group containers. To learn more, visit him at Dr. Alan Bittaker on Instagram or dralan.co. Let's dive in.
It's like a monkey tail.
It's like a monkey tail.
It's like a monkey tail.
Dolphin penises are like monkey tails.
They can swivel all different ways and literally grab things. And there's an astounding number of people who get raped by dolphins every year to the death.
Actual people. Where is this statistic coming from?
We should look it up. We need a Jamie. Jamie, look up the thing about the dolphins.
Yeah, we should reach out to him directly and see if he's available. Oh my Jamie. God. Okay. All right. Shall we kick it off? Let's kick it off.
I think the opening question is, I've never done a darkness retreat. This is round 2 for you. I seem to have some sense of what it is, but would you be open to just describing the experience firsthand and some of the structural situations?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a lot like it sounds. It is you go into a room that is completely and totally dark, and you stay there for a while. And people bring you your food. There's a toilet, there's a bed, there's some space to meditate, and some space to do yoga, and that's it. That's all it is. One of the things that people, I think, generally uh, wonder about is like, okay, but there's a little bit of light, right? No, that the point is that there is absolutely no perceptible level of light to the human eye, um, and you cannot see anything. It's the same level of darkness with your eyes open and your eyes closed. Um, it's I've never been in solitary confinement, but it's very similar to what I understand solitary confinement to be for those in that unfortunate situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say you look like you've been to prison. Is this? It's not,
Do I?
yeah.
I definitely haven't. I've definitely not been to prison.
All right, just checking.
I am the softest man alive. I don't know about the softest man alive, but God, I am never going to do a thing that takes me to federal pound me in the ass prison. That is not a place I want to go. In any case, we digress. So yeah, I think, and I just for clarity, I've done one of these before, and the reason for this conversation, I did one. It was about 7 days in length. That was 3 years ago, roughly. And the reason for this conversation is I'm in the midst of preparation for doing one that's going to be 14 days in length. And just kind of readying my mind, my body, and my spirit for it, and preparing. And I wanted to share the journey and the experience with people, just because it was so life altering for me. And I think I believe like so deeply in, I guess you could call it a this spiritual technology or this practice, because I think it's so radical, and it has such a profound ability to create change for a human being if you're available for it and you've prepared properly. So, yeah, that's what a dark retreat is.
In terms of radicalness, you're doing 14 days in the world of dark retreats. How intense is that?
I've heard of one person going as long as 40 days. I don't know in like the broader spiritual context, when you're talking about like yogis and masters from Tibet and, India and so forth. I don't actually have a lot of background and understanding, but in the modern era, I only know the longest I've heard of other people go, besides that one person who's done 40 days, is 10 days. It's quite a long time because you literally have nothing to do. So the experience is one of being utterly present with your own consciousness, your own manifestation of consciousness. And if one does not have the stability or availability to be with what is arising, it can be, and even if one does, it can be a very grueling or overwhelming experience. And I should note that it isn't just, people think about dark retreats as being black, like a void, but actually it's an incredibly intensely visual experience, because what happens is that the brain chemistry changes. And I don't know exactly how it works, but first there's a saturation of melatonin because you're not getting any light in the eyes. And then it cascades into a variety of different other compounds. And I don't know how much research has actually been done, but I think the understanding is that the body starts to produce DMT, which is the same molecule that is released at birth and at death. So you're entering, and is also the active, it's the psychoactive compound in ayahuasca. So it is a psychedelic experience, but part of what is so incredible about it is that the psychoactive component is held in a lucid space. So if anyone's ever sat with something like ayahuasca or done medicine work, there is a quality of intoxication that can come with those medicines where you don't feel fully sober. And in the darkness, although it is an altered experience, there's a sobriety and a clarity and a sensitivity that is so beautiful and precious. It's like feeling the most clear and sober I've ever felt. And the first experience was, like I said, one of the most profound of my life. And so that hence the inspiration to come back.
Sounds really amazing, honestly. The I think the way what you're describing, the way I would describe it in some ways is like when you're talking about like a unique level of soberness, does it feel like clarity? Would you describe it as clarity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's clarity. And I think one way to think about it too is it's like a fast
Mm-hmm.
for uh, everything except for food. Some people actually choose to fast. We have a friend, Marcy,
Mm-hmm.
who chose to fast. Um, I think she maybe even did a dry fast in there. I don't know, but I don't have a lot of experience with fasting. So I got the recommendation not to fast this time. I was considering it, but it's like a fast for awareness. So we're constantly taking in information through our eyes, through our sensory experience, through contact with others. And all of this is actually, all of the ways in which we need to engage with the world is stimulating the ego or the identity, and it's recreating itself. And the purpose, the fundamental purpose to me of the dark, I think different people can go in for different experiences and different reasons. But for me, the reason that I'm drawn to it is I don't think there's a more powerful way to come in contact with our true nature, the awareness that is behind all of the personality structure. The being that we call ourselves starts to shine through. And so this sense of being someone, the sense of being the body, starts to get very, very thin. And we start to actually notice, whoa, there's something deeper here, and it's ancient, and it's pure, and it's untouched, and it's always been here. And you can rest in that for hours and hours and hours, and then there's a quality of nourishment and ease and joy that can accompany it. I mean, I've had some of the most exquisitely blissful states of my entire existence in a dark room with no one and nothing.
So, so now I understand why you're doing 14 days, because you're like more better.
Hey, don't fuck with me, okay? I'm trying to go
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
I'm tired of myself. I mean, I think the best way to say, like, the simplest way to say it is like, I'm exhausted of being me. I'd like to be no one.
Mm-hmm.
And being me is exhausting. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's true for so many people. I think for the vast majority of humans, there's a quality of like, oh my God, I just need to get away from myself. Like I'm unrelenting, just like I'm worried about this and I'm worried about that. And I'm doing this thing that's not in alignment with my values. And I'm doing that thing that's not in alignment with my values. And oh God. And, darkness is in a way, there's this like nourishment. It feels like going back into like the womb of Mother Earth,
Mm-hmm.
um to return literally to our source. like the source of consciousness and awareness. It's legit, man. Oh my God. It's so good.
Do you feel like since you're you're at the retreat center, you're getting closer to doing it? When do you go in, by the way? When do you
Yeah.
start?
So for context for people, I'm not just going straight into darkness like for 14 days with no preparation. That sounds really insane. So
Hmm.
just going from normal waking life. So what I did is there's a retreat center here in Mexico called Hridaya Yoga that's incredible. And I had the blessing of coming in contact with a teacher who taught a 30-day silent retreat that I did directly before the darkness last time as my way of preparing. So I'm here at Hridaya Yoga. They have a number of different modules, but they teach what I would say is sort of the true essence of yoga, which is about union. That's what the word literally means. It comes from the root word yug, which is to yoke. That's like the etymology of it. And so there are I'm getting an exposure to physical practices through the asana, but also a tremendous amount of knowledge and teaching, which was missing for me last time, and is why I think I didn't integrate the last experience as well as I would have liked to. So I'm just completing. Tomorrow I will complete a 3-week yoga intensive, what's called their module 1, and then on Thursday I'm doing a 10-day silent retreat, and then I go into the darkness on the evening of May 19th, and I come out the morning of June 3rd. So that's a full 14 days inside. Um, so the whole cycle is going to be not quite uh, 2 months of time. Um, so that's the plan. I'm doing it this way to try and sort of first prepare the body and then the mind, through seated a tremendous amount of seated practice to and disconnection from my phone and from technology. This is, in a few days my phone will be off and I'll be just in total prep mode.
How is it feeling? Like, I have some assumption that maybe you're already starting to feel the experience of what it might be like to be in the darkness.
Oh yeah, it's juicy. I've been meditating every morning for an hour. They have a seated practice in the main hall that like the whole local community comes to. It's beautiful. There's like 80 people there every morning.
Wow.
Um, and uh, and so I've been doing seated practice for an hour, and then seated practice after the times that we do yoga during the day, which is twice. We have like two-hour hatha yoga practices during the day, and these little glimpses, are shining through of resting as awareness, resting as consciousness. And with each sit, it kind of, the aperture opens a little wider and a little wider, and there's more awareness and less identity, less ego
Mm.
present. So I'm getting glimpses, but to be honest, it's been fucking hard. It has been kicking my ass here, and there's a mix of factors. I'm in Oaxaca, in the state of Oaxaca, in a little town called Mazunte, and it's hot as balls. It's the end of the dry season, and 90 degrees every day, high humidity. I mean, it's gorgeous. I'm literally like on the other side of the screen is a view of the Pacific Ocean. It's stunning.
Mm.
But it's really hot, and it's a commonly known kind of thing that during this module people experience what are called purifications. So I'm having a lot move through me emotionally. I had some stuff come up around an ex, and just a feeling of like tremendous appreciation for how she was with me, and grief um, at that door being closed to me, and and grief at who I was at that time in my life, that was a whole process for the first few days that was just like, oh man, it just chewed me up. I was so raw emotionally. And then I've been dealing with an autoimmune condition for 17 years, and it has unfortunately kicked up quite violently. So I've been in a tremendous amount of physical pain while doing a lot of physical activity. So it's been a really intense experience. And I kind of feel twisted inside out, just like, fuck.
I do know.
Yeah, you do know, don't you, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Alan and I, it's a little tangent. Alan and I both did an MDMA assisted ceremony recently, and I think that's part of what opened me up for a lot of this stuff to move through. But you've been having a rough go, haven't you, dude?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're having any type of experience like I'm having, I'd imagine that it's probably both like really pleasant, beautiful, and also challenging.
Yeah, I think that tracks. I mean, the first few days after that ceremony, I had just gotten here and I had this giant heart opening, which felt so good. And then this crash into grief and pain, and have been moving and liberating a lot of that stuff. It's like it did open up the space of the heart, but sometimes when we do that, I think it's one of the reasons we walk around with a closed heart. It doesn't feel so hot.
Yeah. So a little quick download on my experience, and even like what I think was happening for me was that there was so much access to energy, love, resource. It was really safe. There was no forcing.
Yep.
And I started working with my intuition, because I really didn't want to like force anything. And I started to watch myself when I would try and like go in and acknowledge a part of myself that was uncomfortable or something. But I got into this really nice flow of just letting whatever wanted to arise in my experience to fully emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And then with all of the resource of love and connection from the medicine, I would just totally meet it and be with it. And then it would, for most of them, it would move into resolution or felt sense of resolution with the sensation and the experience. And there wasn't a whole lot of mental anything happening. It was really more direct experience, felt sense. And I feel like I have no idea, but I went through like 50 of those processes. It was like I just got into a rhythm and a roll with it. And by the end, I was like so inside out. And for the last 3 weeks, I'm like, there's nothing in between me and anything. Because all of the, it feels like identity structures or buffers or protection that I was using, somehow it got removed. And I'm like, fuck, I want it back. Like, this is vulnerable. And and then just being in contact with life and the way that I do things and feeling the level of inauthenticity with how I actually feel deep down now that I'm in deeper contact with the things that I've been buffered from. There's like the challenge of being in contact with it because it's painful. And then the challenge of not really having the tools or the strategies to get it what it needs, and being confronted with my other tools and strategies, which aren't good for me anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're good for some things.
Yeah.
So it's like that thing's happening. I feel
I'm
like it's really, really worthwhile and really a beautiful process, but fuck, it's confronting.
dude, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it actually sounds like you're describing my experience coming out of the dark the first time. And I think this is the thing that makes deep spiritual work so challenging, is that the ego, the personality forms as a response to the environment that we've created for ourselves. And we need it actually to be able to function without things being really, really overwhelming and intense. And I remember, I was having a conversation with Aubrey Marcus before I went in. I was in his fit for service container, and I was sharing with him about my plan. And he was like, just be ready. It's like all the calluses come off, all the emotional calluses come off. And I didn't really understand what he meant. And then I got out and I was like, oh, fuck. I'm so raw. I'm a newborn. And, um, and these like, I think the personality in large part is actually like a collection of trauma responses, maybe, just a variety of small ones that we build, that we learn to use as a way to feel okay and to feel safe. And one of the things that's been really focused on here at this school and the teachings of the school is that safety comes from our relationship to awareness within ourselves and from being held by the source of our own consciousness. Like if we can, in a given moment, recognize our true nature, what we really are, and that is the source of all things, the thing that gives rise to every aspect of reality, not as a concept, but as a directly felt sense, even a taste of it. There's a feeling of safety and ease that shows up in the body and in the nervous system that then gives rise to a naturalness in the way that we respond to life and to reality that isn't coming from the distortion of personality because we're trying to get something for the ego so it can feel satisfied or safe. It's a total like flip of the whole structure of what it means to be a human being. And I am so grateful for the course that I've just gone through and the teachings that they've provided. They've really sort of given a holistic approach to like yoga as a path, like for life, and talking about a variety of different things. And the essence of it is like, if we can rest in that place of our authentic, true nature, then the rest will find its way home. The rest will find its place. But it does require that we give up doing all of the things that we've been doing that aren't in alignment with the truth of who we really are. And I'll give an example for, um, people who are familiar with the yogic path may be familiar with the yamas and niyamas, which are sort of codes of ethics, not as a thou shalt not approach, but rather as um, as a suggestion, because if you don't, you're going to get into the trap of the ego again. And one of them, for example, is ahimsa. We were talking about this before we started rolling. Ahimsa means nonviolence, and it's an incredibly deep subject to consider. Is it violent when I need a nap, that I force myself to drink caffeine and do something that the body can't actually handle? Is it a form of violence to ignore the parts of me that are crying out for something different? And it sounds like maybe that's, just as a way of example, like if someone committed to that in an absolute way, would change in their life, and what would you have to deal with within yourself. So, sounds like you're in that process, like we both are, actually.
Totally. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the thing that I started to realize even going into the ceremony was, I'm like, fuck, I want to, develop strategies or have contact with myself enough to take a stand, enough to give myself what I need. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of times it's like creating space for myself and just getting some spaciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like darkness retreat sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Until I started to realize the second part, it's like, oh, fuck, I'm also afraid to be alone.
Mm.
And, because like I do that and then now I'm by myself. And then there's things that I get to sit with and and so the thing I want the most is there's reasons why I'm terrified of it. So,
God, what a truism for life.
mm-hmm.
Continue.
Yeah, that's kind of it. That's like my real time experience of what you're sharing. Some of
Mm-hmm.
these philosophies, and I think I'm on a path now to really just almost positioning it in a way of like taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I went far on one of the spiritual dials, which is non-preference,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some level of negligence to that. I'm like, I'll sleep on the couch. I don't give a shit. Right. It's like, it feels really good for me to have almost no preference because it in many ways allows me to thrive in any environment.
Non-attachment, baby.
Yeah. And it has served me well. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it feels like a really beautiful thing. And I can allow that still. And you're talking, like you had mentioned, nourishment. And, there's some ways I would prefer to have some nourishment that I can, be an adult to myself,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's very fair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, mm. Yeah, it's interesting. You sharing that has me think about the ways in which non-attachment is one of the principles that they talk about that we've been discussing. And so it's like where nonviolence and non-attachment, like, like where do they overlap? Where's the Venn diagram? Yeah, it's
For both of those, I love, and I'm also confused by the word is describing not something. They're like
well,
pointing. They're like, you see this thing? Not that.
not that. Well, sometimes the truth can only be described as a negative. Like the little glimpses that have for me to say the little glimpses that I've had of this quote unquote true nature that I'm talking about, it would be wrong for me to say I had them, because the very like definition of them is that there's no one to be having the experience. It's a cessation of the sense of being someone.
We always get into this one, Micah.
But there was an experience of
Yes.
there was an experience
Who experienced it?
no one at all.
No. Who experienced it?
Not me.
Say it.
Don't tell me what to do, fucker. Go fuck yourself. Non-violently. Go fuck yourself non-violently.
Okay. I'm not attached to that.
Good. I'm glad.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
It does sound nice, though.
This is one I don't think you would love. One of the principles that they've shared with me along the way is brahmacharya, which means living in Brahma, living in God.
Mm.
But that's like the direct translation. But it also means either sexual abstinence in its more extreme form, or sexual continence in its less extreme form, which is essentially non-ejaculation. And
Why you
ever. And
like only for procreation?
exactly, if you're going to procreate, then ejaculate, but otherwise don't. And I mean, it really does make sense. They essentially, the idea is that the sexual energy is one of the most potent energies that we have. And so by not releasing it, and by the way, this is not just for men, this is for both sexes in the context that they've taught it. Because women also have ejaculatory orgasms. It's just it can be that the fluid it can be very explosive if you've experienced that, but it can also be that the
when is an
but
appropriate time for a woman to do that?
for procreation.
What does it serve?
So it doesn't. That's the idea, is that it actually is a discharge of this energy, which is sacred. And if retained and cultivated, actually provides the necessary life force for the will and drive to remain dedicated and focused on the divine, and your commitment to seeking and knowing yourself as the divine, knowing your true nature. So I've been practicing it, actually. I don't know how we got on this tangent. I don't know what the fuck I was about to say before, but um, but yeah, I've been practicing sexual continence, and not I think for the last 2 weeks or so, roughly. I feel fine. I'm doing okay. I'm gonna keep rolling with it as long as I can. We shall see.
Yeah, I like I like the experiment. I like the idea
Yeah.
of the experiment. Um, what do you think about, what's your intuition say about um, yeah, like the healthfulness, or I don't even know exactly how to ask the question, but do you think it's physically healthy to not ejaculate ever?
I don't actually know
Yeah.
if there are any meaningful health consequences or not. I have a hard time imagining that there are. Um, like, I think the way that it lands for me is there was probably a very long period of time for lots of humans, um, where they hadn't really put the pieces together and started getting off on their own.
Mhm.
And the energy was in pursuit of a mate. And in this case, it's just sort of taking that energetic drive. There's a practice called sublimation that we've learned, where you may have heard of bandhas. So there's one in particular called Uddiyana Bandha, where you're actually drawing the energy up. Different asanas can do this. You're drawing the energy up through the chakras, from Svadhisthana chakra, which is the sort of the second chakra and is the source of like desire, pleasure, and kind of the root, and that one. Um, are where the sort of sex drive comes from, and drawing that up into the heart center and higher to transmute the energy into something completely different, something new. So I don't know about the health effects, but I'm guessing that there have been many humans that have done this, and they probably are all okay. I don't think anyone's going to die of blue balls.
What do they say about jerking off?
Don't do it. Actually, no, that's not true.
Mm.
There, there,
Don't do it.
don't do it. Don't do that
Stop
shit. Cut
it.
that shit out. No, the recommendation that I got was essentially, if you are going to connect with yourself in that way, keep your sexual continence and do it as like, it's not just about non-ejaculation. It's about connecting the act of sex itself to the practice of yoga, to using the act of sexual intimacy as a way to connect to the divine, and making the entire experience about that at its fundamental essence. And so if you're going to masturbate, then have that be the intention, and have your relationship to self as you do it be a be the same kind of relationship that you would bring to a lover. So you're not just jumping into, jacking off to, blow a load to calm yourself down. It's like, how would I engage with a lover in a sacred way? Do that with yourself. So that's been the essence of the teaching around brahmacharya. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet we could do a whole podcast on this.
I'm sure we could. Maybe we should.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think we should go next? I'm wondering, what direction we should take it in terms of offering people some insight around the darkness.
Yeah. I think my next question for you is around, where are you feeling? Yeah, like, what are you feeling in terms of going into this next process of the silent meditation retreat and then darkness?
Hmm.
What's coming up for you around all of that?
What I've been feeling a lot, I came out of the 30-day silent retreat and then the darkness immediately after. That was, I came out in early July of 2021, just with my heart on fire, for God. I mean, for the spiritual path. Uh and yet I was in a place where I didn't have the availability to go more deeply for a couple of reasons. One is I just had personal things that needed to be wrapped up. I had a business that I needed to sell. I had a lot of health stuff that I was navigating, same autoimmune stuff that I mentioned earlier. And and I think maybe most importantly, I didn't have a framework to integrate the experience and to begin to fit my daily life into my spiritual devotion and commitments, rather than fit my spirituality into my daily life, which is what ended up happening. And so I diverged from the path in a variety of different ways. I lost there was a cultivation of a level of compassion and kindness and open-heartedness that was so precious to me with myself and with others as I came out of that experience, and a tenderness. And I think what I was navigating and going through personally closed me up to that. And in some ways, the old patterns of judgment and cynicism and boredom and so forth sort of reiterated themselves. And I think part of that was because I also hadn't resolved an addiction to pornography and sex at that time. And so there was a big closure. And being here there's this like, oh my God, I'm home. I'm back home again. Like home within myself, home within my heart. And there's a deep sense of like ease and peace that's opening up, and like it's safe to follow my heart in my life and choose what feels right, even if I can't make sense of it intellectually. And so there's this like, what I'm feeling is both the like grief and heartache of things that need to be completed about that old personality structure, work that I still need to do, particularly around the 12 steps for sex addiction, like completing my moral inventory with myself, making amends. Like those are things that feel important to sort of let go of the old version of myself, to let go of myself. And also just this sense of like gratitude that I have the good fortune to be able to offer myself to this process, and um and make my way home. And I can feel that flame in my heart never went out. I don't think once it's lit it ever does. And I can feel it's like I'm like blowing on the embers, and it's coming to life again. And that space of pure awareness and pure consciousness is becoming more and more accessible with each seated practice, and there's more and more ease that's moving into me. And so there's a quality of grace that's entering. So I'm feeling really tender, and I'm feeling worn out by my experience in some ways, but very ready to go in again and come out and really integrate this into my life, as a different way of being in the world. Um, as a gift to myself and a gift to others. That's, to me, I think, the essence of what this is about. Like, I heard a quote here. I don't remember who it was from or if I'm going to get it right, but it was like, you know, awakening or enlightenment is the greatest gift you can give to the world. And I think it's true. You can look at saints and sages and these beings, they're a blessing to the world. And I don't purport to know whether or not I'm going to get enlightened in a dark room in 14 days. I don't think so. Um, but a movement in that direction is an expression of a commitment of like living from my heart in a way that I've missed.
That's beautiful, man. Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Thanks for
really
asking.
touching, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Me
Is
too.
there is there anything that you're experiencing fear or uncertainty about?
For sure. I mean, 14 days is a long fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's crazy because it is and it isn't.
yeah.
Like the 14 days are going to happen no matter what.
Oh yeah. They sure
So
are.
time is so interesting.
Yeah, especially once you get in that little room, time does some very, very interesting things. Um, I mean, there is you know, the intention is 14 days, but it's not something that I'm gripping tightly. And I think that's important because if I hold on to this notion that I'm going to do all 14 days in a rigid way, then that's a game the ego's playing with itself, to prove something to what the I don't know how many people are ever going to see this, but hopefully a lot, because I believe in this as a service to the world, and I believe in darkness so much. And like, I don't know how many people are going to ever know in my entire life. It's like, that's not, it can't be what it's about. So, um, so I'm giving myself the space to leave if I feel like, okay, it's time to leave. It's complete. But there's some hesitation, some fear around that. I think there's more contact now for me with the sort of like fractured, shadowy parts of the personality that really need to be healed and liberated and freed and integrated. And it may be a painful process that I think may happen while I'm in there. There was a guy who did a dark retreat here at I'm at the hotel next door to the retreat center. So the dark retreat is actually at a place called Posada Arigalan, and he expressed some concerns around the possibility of there being mold in the spaces. And given what I have with my health going on, there's some concern around that. And I really sat with like, am I still going to do this? And when I thought about it, health is an extremely high priority for me, but it's not as important as the spiritual path. And so I'm going to go for it. You know, I checked out the rooms. It seemed okay to me. I don't know, but I'm just choosing to trust that like it'll be okay. So that's a concern. But for the most part, there's just a sense of like, I'm also worried that maybe I'm in a different place and that I'm expecting to have the same kind of experience that I had last time, and it'll be totally different and way fucking harder. And, you know, last time it was this like, I felt like I was just getting like an experience of peace that was so fucking good, like ease and rest that was so badly needed. And maybe it won't be that at all. Maybe it'll be really fucking hard, you know? So there are some concerns, but I think overall, there's just a readiness.
The Are you someone who's sensitive to mold? You know, like how if I were to go into a room with mold with someone else that I know who's actually sensitive, they're going to have a totally different experience than me.
Yeah,
What's your experience with mold?
I don't think that I am, but I don't know. Um, you know, there's a very reasonable argument to be made that the autoimmune stuff that I'm having could be driven by that in some way that I don't realize. But I don't know. The honest answer is I just don't know. Maybe I am. But we're going to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting, bro.
Yeah, it really
I,
is.
I I have a belief or a story about myself in relationship to medicine that it's generally easy for me, and I feel like
Mm,
this story seems to support me, and even if it's challenging, there's a level of like I'm gonna meet it, embrace it, and if it all falls apart, then I'm gonna really meet myself and get to put it back
mm-hmm,
together. And so there's like
mm-hmm.
I can imagine how the last experience you had, the story about that might even be supportive for you if you're not having the expectation, but um, it doesn't sound like you could really fuck up if you're looking to have deep rest.
Yeah,
That's like I imagine that's
yeah,
going to happen. Yeah.
yeah, totally. I think you're absolutely right. And I do think that the experience that I had last time is so supportive to me being able to meet this in a way that is uh like you said, like supportive to the whole process. Um and that initial imprint was such a good one. And it's not to say that I didn't have fucking terrifying, challenging moments. There were maybe I can share a little bit of that
Yeah.
for entertainment value. It was mostly like tremendously beautiful with an incredibly deep sense of rest. By the time it was time to leave, I was like, God, I just want more. And and I had the experience on day 3 or 4, I don't remember what it was, this really intense like pain in the middle of my chest that was radiating down my arm, my right arm. And my brain was like, you're having a heart attack. This is it. You're going to die. And keep in mind, I'm like 38. Like, yeah, I've done some dumb shit. Like, I've done some steroids, and I've done, MDMA and its ilk to excess, like a clown for a while. But not enough that I should fucking die of a heart attack. And, it's like such an absurd thing. Meanwhile, my brain's like, you got to get the fuck out of here, bud. Like, if you stay in here, you're going to die in Guatemala in a fucking dark room, and they're just going to find your dead corpse, and you're not going to get to say goodbye to anybody. Like, you need to get to the hospital right now. It's time to leave. And it was very insistent. And I had to, the way I had to meet it was like, if I'm supposed to die of a heart attack while spending time focused on my deepest commitment to encountering God in the world and in myself, that's how I die. That's okay. And so I just chose not to do anything about it. I don't think I had a heart attack. I'm pretty sure I didn't. It's possible that I did. People have them all the time and don't know. And then later in the week, before I was about to leave, I had low back pain, pretty severe low back pain, like in the area of the kidneys. And my brain was like, you're definitely going into diabetic shock. Like, your kidneys are failing. Like, you've been eating all this vegan food, just nonstop carbs. Like, this is it. Like, you're going to, and I was like, okay, guy, really?
That sounds like a lie.
I was like, that is not, I'm just going to discard this out of hand. Okay. You can, thank you for the input, but no, that's not what's happening. And so that one was easy, but the hardest moment was actually also, I think, the most important moment, which was I was singing a mantra that goes gate gate paragate parasam gate bodhisvaha, and an approximate translation is gone, totally gone to the great beyond. And I was doing a mantra practice with my mala. I was going for 108 times. And I was in this little meditation cubby, and the whole place is like a concrete box. So it had this amazing resonance. And I was like, oh, maybe I can sing a little bit. Okay. I'm feeling myself. And so I was just really ripping it. And there was a moment where, poof, the mantra worked. And it like, be careful what you sing, because that's what fucking happened. And there was this moment where there was no sense of self whatsoever. There was a change in the visual field. There was nobody. There was then hyperventilating and breathing, and fear. And then this moment of like it was all just happening. And then boom, like 10 seconds later, a feeling of slamming back into myself and sheer fucking terror. And it was a moment of, it sure didn't feel like liberation, but it's a moment of liberation. And it tracks with some other non-dual experiences that I've had, at least what I understand to be non-dual experiences. And and I could not regulate my nervous system no matter what I did. I tried, a variety of yoga asanas. I tried breath work. I tried trying to do seated practice, and my nervous system was absolutely fucking fried. So I laid down on the bed. I was like, okay, what do I do? And I couldn't think of anything. So I just laid there and let consciousness do what it does. And I don't know how much longer, but I was like this for hours. And there was a moment where I got a visual image of a young version of myself, a little boy. And I greeted him in my mind's eye, and he said, You left me. And I said, You're right, I did. And I'm so sorry you got scared by that. But when I'm gone, God's here, and God can do a way better job than I ever could. I promise. And then it was like somebody popped a balloon and it all went away instantly. And I saw him and felt him relax inside. And there was this total release of all of the fear, all of the overwhelm, all of the anxiety. Such a surreal experience. And it even in sharing the story, it like makes me think about how the awakening process, the liberation process, is something that it's like at least for me and the way my experience has been, it's such a sensitive process, and it's so important to go at a pace that the system can tolerate with gentleness and care. Um, Speaking of nonviolence, and yeah, so those were the two big moments, the two challenging moments, I should say. The rest was certainly some boredom, but mostly just ease and joy and rest and deep, deep peace.
Wow. Micah, how do you think someone like me would do with this experience?
I think you'd fucking love it.
Yeah.
I think you'd love it. What I would say is that for anyone that is interested, I think it is not the right approach to jump straight in. I think if one does not have a consistent seated meditation practice of at least an hour a day, start there as a way to build a relationship with your own framework of consciousness. And then when you feel ready, the ideal thing I think would be to do a retreat of some kind to get guidance and a framework that you can then take inside with you. And not just any, like really make sure that who is teaching it and the lineage and the essence of the teachers are really, really, really clean and effective. And then go in. And if that's not available, then take a few days before to be in a retreat sort of space of your own where you've turned off your phone, you're practicing seated practice, maybe yoga 3-4 times a day. You're in a contemplative space. You're maybe reading, spiritual texts or poetry, something to really like open yourself to the prayer that is the entering the dark. And it's not, I think it shouldn't be treated as just another psychedelic experience, because what is unique is that you get to have an experience in which everything which stimulates the feeling of being someone is gone. And the opportunity to understand your own consciousness and come in contact with what you really are is unlike anything else. It's so beautiful and so sacred. Um, I know that was a long-winded answer, but yeah,
It's
I
bringing
think.
me to the question. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go
Finish
ahead.
it. Well, yeah, it's bringing me to the question of your integration.
Mm,
What
well,
you're thinking for that.
we're gonna find out.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think for me, the integration process. So I've given myself a few days. Um, I've given myself a few days to land here in Mazunte. So I'm going to be staying on the same property that I'm at. There's a nice suite here with an ocean view. I can extend that time if I want. So I'll be here for at least a few days to just let the system land. That was a mistake that I made last time, where I flew home the very next day, and I was so sensitized that I could feel the shift in energy in the airport in Guatemala when I came nearby plants. It was like that. I was
Yeah.
like wide open. And it was too much to be traveling so close after. It's like the like it's like you get opened up. Things needed a little more space to knit back together a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving myself a few days. My intention is to go to the meditation every morning here, um, to have a consistent yoga practice, and to go home and to really begin to integrate in a conscious way the teachings from this module as the foundation of the integration process. And I think for me, what I've come to understand is that there's a wisdom in these ancient moral codes. I think it's why they're repeated across so many different texts and so many different traditions, some more aggressively and patriarchally than others, is that consciousness can't liberate itself when it's worried about getting caught in a lie, or when it's worried about how it's going to get laid, or it's worried about um, you know these sort of base primal things that we do in order to get some sort of satisfaction from the environment that we're in. And that's the reason why we violate these moral codes. So for me, it's like I think that's the main thing. The main focus for me is practice, like literally seated practice, yoga, and integration of these codes of ethics in a really deep way. And for me also completing the 12 steps um, around sex addiction, because I think doing so will give me the ability to really put that past version of myself, to sort of set myself free of who I was and no longer be caught in it. I also have an intention of a lot of time in nature, assuming the body will accommodate that process. I don't know how it's going to feel when I get home. I'd really like to get my health under control because it's flared up again. So, but that's the integration process. I think is like, and I think at maybe a more subtle level is really getting attuned to what is it like to be in the presence of this experience, of this being, of this moment. You know, the old version of me wants to, like, I've been sitting with, like, do I even want to go to Burning Man? Is that even an an appropriate thing. I've been so many times now. And there's this part of me that's like, yeah, I love Burning Man. And there's another part of me that's like, how does this fit with your spiritual commitment? Is that a place I want to be?
I was thinking maybe we'd do like some type of Burning Man experience right after you come out of the dark. And take some MDMA and get some like really bright lights flashing in your eyes. Oh my
God, that sounds awful. That sounds terrible. I think what I want after I get out of the dark, this probably won't be released until well after I'm actually out, but I'm going to want cuddles. That's probably what I'm going to want. Cuddles and like deep ease. You know, it is a rebirth process, and like the intention is to honor that in a really deep way.
Epic, brother.
Yeah.
Excited for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for me too.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
I'm excited for you too when you decided to make the leap. It's magic. It's just magic.
Yeah, I will for sure do it. I feel that. I definitely feel that. And the other one that I've been looking at for a long time is like an extended fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I do get curious about some way those complementing each other.
For sure.
And I think the part of me that needs to get over something around both of those is like taking 2 months out of my life, you know,
mm-hmm.
for
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do in terms of just the sheer logistics of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, money is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Time is a thing. It is and it isn't. Yeah.
Commitments, all of those things. So, and you know, it seems worthwhile making it work.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about wrapping it there?
I think it's a good place, man.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for chatting with me. I love you, brother.
Bro. Love you, man.
And
thanks for sharing.
You got it. We'll chat on the other side. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this episode valuable, there are 2 easy ways to support the podcast. First, simply subscribe to this podcast or channel on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. And second, please share this episode with a loved one or a friend or someone who would be positively impacted by it. Thank you so much once again, and see you soon.